Hey everybody, I hope y'all are doing well. My name is Ahmad, and I'm an early career software engineer at UT Austin working on the IAM team. I'm so excited to be here. I'm incredibly passionate about helping people get tech jobs they love both within and outside of the big tech world. And today we have some awesome folks here to discuss software engineering opportunities outside of Silicon Valley. So with that in mind, I'm going to start introducing you to today's panelists. So first we have Grace Brackman. She graduated last year from Purdue with the degree in computer science with a concentration in machine learning, and now works as an associate application developer at Discover. Next, we have Dan Deschamps. He's the senior manager of software development, digital EV commerce at General Motors. He has a Bachelor of Science in Engineering from Arizona State University and 20 years experience in IT, and has been with GM since 2014 in IT leadership roles. And finally, we have Deanna Benson. She is a campus talent advisor at Charles Schwab. She's a Fort Worth, Texas native who graduated from Texas Tech University. And now I'd like to start off with some quick summaries of what you guys do. So first, Dan, why don't you go first? Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're working on at GM?
Yeah, sure. So thank you for having me. Happy to be here. At GM, you know, I mean, obviously we're an engineering company. A lot of people know us as a car company, an automotive manufacturer. And over the last 5 years or so, we've really been pivoting from being an automaker to being what we consider to be a platform innovator. So if you think about your vehicle, we think about it a lot like you might, a cell phone, where it's essentially just a platform that we can put technology into. So to that end, we've been hiring a lot of new college grads, over 9,000 new college grads over the last 5 years, if you can imagine, going into sort of 3 core areas. And obviously, I'm focused on the sort of the software development side. Of course, we hire engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, all that good stuff. But the 3 areas, number one is we do have about 50 different digital businesses that we operate, including things like our autonomous taxi fleet known as Cruise. We have an energy company that essentially deals with infrastructure charging. We have a thing called Bright Drop, which is sort of like electric FedEx vans and the fleet management that goes into that sort of logistics provider. We have insurance, we have defense, we have, again, like 50 businesses. So that's sort of the digital business teams. And then we have the software defined vehicle, and that's all the code that goes into the car. So when you get in and it knows, well, first of all, obviously all the help you get driving, lane assist, all those kinds of things, as well as the car just knowing who you are and setting up all your preferences in the vehicle, whether it be the lighting or the way the seat works or where the steering wheel sort of sits. That's the software to defined vehicle components. And then of course we have core IT. So core IT is going to be, I'm using a laptop, I have a network, everything's just sort of working. All of the systems that go into the supply chain work we do, the manufacturing work, HR, I get paid every 2 weeks, which is nice. Thank you to the finance team. So all of the core IT it takes to run a company with 160,000 plus people in it, we do that as well. So tons and tons and tons of jobs. I think if you added them all up, it's again in excess of probably 15,000 software developers across all those 3 core areas.
Wow, awesome. I mean, it seems like there's a lot going on over there. That's really cool. Thank you. So Grace, some people might not realize how many software engineering opportunities there are at a place like Discover. Can you explain a little bit more about what your role is?
Yeah, thank you. Excited to be here. So I work as a front-end developer on a business application that works on expanding Discover's network to be accepted in as many places as possible. So that really works to our goal is to like the highest acceptance possible. And I also have friends that work in app dev. I have friends that work in artificial intelligence on the fraud authentication side. I have back-end developers to my team that I get to work with, and just security. It's all over the place, and there's lots of different opportunities here at Discover.
Cool. Sounds great. Thank you. So it seems like Deanna's not present yet, so we'll just go straight into like what you guys do on a typical day. So if you guys can just go over like what a typical day or week looks like for you guys. Do you guys start off with like a daily stand-up? Do you have like pair programming meetings, or what does it look like between like coding and like meeting schedule and all that? So Grace, why don't you go first? Talk a little bit more about that.
Awesome. So I start my day around, I start my day whenever, like before my stand-up normally happens around 10. And then I normally have some chats with some other developers, just touching base about things that we did the day before. But for the most part, about 85%, mostly 90% of my day is spent coding. And that's really given to me by the product owners who I get to work so closely with that really do all the information collecting that I need that allows me to be almost fully development focused. And I do some paired programming with other developers, which is really great and has been like so helpful in my learning experience. But for the most part, I'm 85% of my day is spent coding, and that's really what I wanted in a role.
That's great. Yeah, I feel like more time coding, like lots of opportunities for you to learn. A pair program is like awesome, especially when you have like a senior engineer helping you guide you through. So Dan, what does a typical day for a recent grad on your team look like?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, same thing, right? So most of our teams, the vast majority are also living sort of the agile lifestyle. So our daily stand-ups are at 9 a.m. So very similar to Grace. People come in, sort of get in, daily stand-up at 9 a.m. And then today's actually sort of a cool day. Tomorrow, our sprint ends tomorrow. So today's a big day where well, actually it sort of ends today and the next sprint starts tomorrow. So today we did all of our sprint planning. So we have all the core ceremonies. We were on the, calls from 9 a.m. to 11, just closing out the last sprint, what got done, QA'd, ready to go into the, production deploy. And then here's a list of all the stories that were refined and ready to go. Just like Grace said, we have product owners as well. So here are the stories that have reached a status of definition of ready to be coded. And then literally just, they've all been sized, they've all been refined, and people are just raising their hands like, I'll take that one, or yeah, I haven't worked on that yet, let me do that. So you sort of pick the stories that you want to work on. And then over the next 2 weeks, because we run 2-week sprints, they'll code those. As soon as the coding is done, which most stories take 2 to 3 days to code, you hand it to QA, they test it. Most team members get 2 to 4 stories per sprint. So you'll do one every 2 days and just sort of hand them to QA as you go, fix any bugs that you get. And then at the end, boom, we hit a Tuesday again, and it's time to close out what's done and make plans for the next set. So very, very similar agile lifestyle for our guys as well.
Sounds good. Yeah. So it seems like Deanna just joined. So welcome, Deanna. Thank you for joining.
Hi.
So
Hi,
welcome.
I'm a problem child. I'm so sorry.
No, all 3 of us had the same problem.
Oh my gosh. I'm embarrassed. I'm always like help me. I don't know how anything works, so I apologize.
All right, no worries. Thank you for joining. So far all we did was we just gave a brief introduction about what we do and a typical day of a day or a week. So if you just want to give a brief introduction about yourself and what a typical day and week looks like for you at Charles Schwab.
Perfect. Well, hi everybody. I'm Deanna Benson. I work at Charles Schwab. I'm a talent advisor here on our campus team, and so I typically will be hiring entry level prime talents, those graduating from school. I primarily recruit for our nerd program, which is just basically going to be our software development, software engineering. So that is my expertise, if I call myself an expert. I also am going to be aiding in regards to the intern program that we are going to start hiring for pretty soon. And with that group, I'm going to be helping with IT, more software development, software engineering. My typical work day as a TA, that might be boring to you guys, but I do know typical work just for those that I hire for. If you want to, did you want to hear about that, or did you want to hear about my work day? I could tell you about my work day if you'd like.
So so if you could just briefly tell a bit about yourself, and then also what would you tell a student or a recent grad to expect from a software engineering role at Charles Schwab, if you could do that as well.
Yeah. So what I like to say is, again, I hire for the nerd program, which is very reflective in regards to what you're going to be doing once you join the company as a software engineer. So I like to say there's going to be an onboarding and training period to aid everybody in regards to getting acclimated. There's going to be a boot camp. And from there, that's where you're just going to learn the different systems. There's going to be different languages, different technologies. So they go through that and get everybody ready to go. And then you're going to be on your team. And then from your team, I like to say you're just going to be doing your day-to-day role. There's different technologies for each group. So you'll be working with the technologies for that group. And what I like to say is, depending on which business group you're with, we got front end, back end, full stack. There's different groups and different things. So primarily you'd be working for, for example, I have one group, they're working for 401k management. Then you have another group and they'll be working on different disclosures and different applications. So primarily just working on that group's fields. There'll be different projects. We're really big on growth and development here. So there's going to be different times for you to work on your technical and soft skills throughout that. And really just continuing a collaborative, innovative environment. So that was a long-winded way of saying kind of what to anticipate here.
Awesome, sounds good. I think you explained it really, really well. Thank you. So now I kind of want to talk about like tech jobs and like non-tech spaces, because all of us, I guess, like we're not working in like the ideal like tech company that people have like an image of. Dan, so why don't you so I want to ask you like what made you choose to build a career at GM, and what would you tell
Sure.
people who are considering like a similar choice?
Yeah. So first things first, for those of you who are getting a degree in computer science, congratulations. You can work anywhere. You can pick your zip code anywhere on the planet and you can go there. There's an IT job there. So you're definitely doing the right thing by getting a degree in IT. The second thing I would tell you is, as it stands right now, almost every company has a decent sized IT division, right? So you can pretty much pick any company that you want to work for. So again, that's another benefit. You can go anywhere, you can work for anybody. So for me, I actually, sort of like Grace, I started in banking and finance. I spent 17 years at Wells Fargo, a very large bank. Started out in the help desk, like resetting passwords, and then just made my way all the way up to doing application development and application integration and things like that. And then I found out about GM. And again, this was about 8 years ago. GM was just building this building I'm in right now, right down the road from where I worked. And on it, they wrote, IT Innovation Center. And I was like, that's interesting. That's what I do, right? Just like every company. And just down the street, Northrop Grumman, PayPal, like they're all here. I could just pick. But what drew me to GM was I really just connected with the vision that they were rolling out, this idea of, we are going to change the world, right? We're going to go to electric vehicles, zero emissions. We are going to go to autonomous and semi-autonomous vehicles. We're well underway with that. So there will be zero crashes. And then the next phase, which you'll start to see rolling out over the next 5 years, is this idea of zero congestion, where we believe that we can actually reduce the number of vehicles that are on the road at a given time using autonomous sort of shuttles, especially in large cities where the traffic is awful. So for those that I work with in Atlanta and in Austin, where the traffic is really bad, those solutions are going to be pretty amazing. So that's what connected me to GM. And again, what I knew was, hey, I know IT, so I can go anywhere and work for anybody. So I would just say kudos to everybody getting that degree. You're going to thank yourself later, I promise.
Yeah, I agree. Like one of the main benefits of CS is just like you can work in any industry, like you said, which I think is like really, really awesome. So Grace, like I wanted to ask you, so did any of your peers like go to your traditional top tech main companies, and how was your experience different from theirs?
Yeah, so I've had peers sprinkled out through all those big companies, and I think mainly my experience is more similar than it is different. I think that I get a lot of the same tech experience, and I'm able to get the same learning and experience. My mentor on my team came from one of those big companies, so it's still that same experience that you would be getting at one of those companies. And I am able to go to the same conferences that all of those people are at. I'm, participating in the same like hackathons that they would do. We have company hackathons here at Discover as well. So it's still is that drive for technical advancement here at Discover. And I would assume at GM and Charles Schwab that is sitting at those other companies. And I feel like my experience here has been very similar when talking over, all right, we're a year into our career. What's it like? What are you doing? Like very similar to my friends that are sitting at those big companies, because at the end of the day, like I work within the technical thing. I'm not really working with Discover's financial aspects. I am not the one to ask for financial advice. So I think that that is something that is really rang true, is that I'm still getting that technical experience, even though I'm outside of a typical technical company.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Like, even though you're not in your standard typical technical company, you're still doing tech stuff, right? So essentially the same thing. So Deanna, so I wanted to ask you, so do you often speak with candidates who are torn between like big tech and pursuing like software engineering jobs that are outside of tech? And I also wanted to ask, to follow up to that question, is like, are there any pros that today's job seekers might not expect as they contemplate their options between big tech companies and like non-tech companies?
Absolutely. So honestly, it's crazy, because I feel like everybody today is way more put together than I was when I was a student. So I don't really personally, I don't talk to a ton of candidates who are torn. A lot of people that come to me are really into fintech. They're just like, yeah, fintech, which I had to learn was financial technology. So they're really into that. But you know, the thing is, just because one person may know, everybody's on different pages, everybody is seeing different things and wanting different things. So I definitely think that that's really like a good and understandable question. But what I like to say is, from what I've learned, you know, big tech is, it's out there. It's like the flashy, the thing. It's really praised and taunted, but not taunted, touted. But what's really cool, and one of the things, you know, I like to ask everybody that works in our software development program, and one of the cool things that we really like to do here is demonstrate a lot of trust in employees, and giving, I like to say, employees and candidates just opportunities. And we're really big on learning, growing, developing, eventually leading. And I think you get those, I like to say it's a little bit more intimate. I think it's an intimate culture that's really fostering empowerment, growth. You know, we really here have like a team mindset versus just like a, we're popular, not to say anything about big tech, but we're really here to foster a really big team environment. And what I like to say is, you know, when you look good, I look good, we look good together. So we build together, we work together as a team, we grow and develop. So I think that's probably just some things that people don't think about. And I think those are really just some things that really shine in regards to our fields.
Right, that's true. I mean, there's a lot of other things just to consider aside from the name. That's a really good way to put it. So I know we talked about like your typical days and everything like that. So I also wanted to touch up on like what type of skills we use, like, in terms of like tech stack and programming languages. So Grace, I wanted to ask you, what tech stack and programming languages are used most often at Discover? And do you often find yourself like switching between programming languages or learning new ones?
Yeah, so I can only really speak to what I get to use in a day-to-day job, because Discover's got a whole range of different jobs that I have no idea what their tech stack looks like. So I get to work with React, TypeScript, and a little bit of CSS and HTML, since I'm a front-end developer. And we use Jest and Cypress mainly as our testing libraries, and obviously we use like GitHub, Node, Jenkins, SonarQube, all that for our like linting and testing and pipeline type stuff. So a big tech stack, but also it's different for every team. And I think that kind of speaks true to most companies that I've talked to peers about, is it depends on what team you are at to what your tech stack kind of looks at. And that's part of joining that new role, and that training that you go through is just like learning, what is this going to look like for me?
Right. So did you, as far as like the tech stack that you're using currently, did you know most of it beforehand, or was that something that you got up to speed as you went through the training process and everything like that?
Yeah, so I actually knew nothing about front end coming into my role. So Discover was absolutely wonderful and gave me that room to really grow. I was able to take a course. I was learning from fantastic mentors that were so patient with me. And so I knew nothing coming in. I was like, all right, how do I do this? And I have been able to learn, and now I'm able to mentor people that have just joined my team. So definitely was a learning experience, but college set me up really well to be able to be like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I know how to problem solve. I've learned a language before from scratch. I can do it all over again. And it was a fun experience. I'm definitely still learning. I don't know everything, but yeah, I did not know anything. And a lot of these pipeline things I had no idea about, because you're not really using those in a college atmosphere. So that's something that is not expected of you either, coming as an entry level person. They're very giving, they're understanding. You can ask all the questions, even if they feel silly. No one's going to make fun of you. So it was a great learning experience, but I didn't know any of it.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak for myself too. And I think that's like everybody's fear when they're applying to do jobs, like, oh, like I'm probably not going to know everything and stuff like that, but it's okay. And you'll learn as you go, which, like you said, which is awesome. So Dan, I wanted to ask you, like, I know you're involved in hiring recent grads. Can you tell us a little bit more about what stands out in a candidate for you, and what do you look out for in interviews, and like what skills and traits do you want like a recent grad to have?
Sure. Yeah. So I do want to take just 2 seconds to say the setup is the same at GM. We have every possible technology. So it sort of depends on what team you're on. My team is Java backend, React front end. We do a lot of API work. We built a mobile app on a Chinese platform called WeChat. So I have people on my team that don't even speak Chinese that are building WeChat apps, which is basically a derivative of Node JavaScript. So if you sort of know JavaScript, you can do that too. So I like Grace's answer that you'll figure it out. And most companies, especially non-tech companies, they'll give you room to sort of grow and learn. And then the beauty is, yeah, if you're like, okay, I'm sort of done with React, I want to learn something different, or I want to go, if Grace decides she wants to work backend, I'm sure Discover has a job for her where she can just go over there and do some backend stuff. So I did want to touch that. What I would say to your actual question is, we do a lot of recruiting. I have my little ASU thing here. I'm at a different school in this picture. You know, I was at Ohio State last week. I've been to Virginia Tech. Like, we go everywhere and we recruit everywhere, at least 50 large universities. And we've been doing that pretty aggressively for 8+ years. So what I can tell you is, when you come into the interview, you're probably not going to tell me a story that I haven't heard before about some capstone project, because I know every capstone project that's ever been done. So I know what you worked on. I can just look at what was your degree, what was your GPA, and be like, I already know you as a what's in your head. So I'm not really going to try to pick that apart. I know some tech companies like Google really get in there and try to trick you and ask you these weird. We don't do that. I already know what you know. I know what you bring to the table the day you show up, in terms of what your professors taught you, because they've been there 8 years too. So I know what they create. We instead focus a lot more on, okay, who's this person? And are they going to be a good cultural fit for us, right? So we have these like core behaviors that we look for. We have like little stickers, right? You know, that like, what, you know, it's on me, right? So we have core behaviors we look for. So what are we looking for? Definitely someone who can collaborate really well. If you're in an engineering program, you already know that. Like, everything is done in a team. These scrum teams we talk about, there might be 12 developers with you, but the total team is like 29 people when you layer in QA and the product owners and the business team, and suddenly there's 30 people in a room. You better be able to collaborate with architects and UI UX designers and everybody, right? They all go into the soup. So you got to be able to collaborate. We are definitely looking for people who are self-motivated. That's the it's on me behavior I showed you. We look for people who are bold. You know, they're just going to come in and say, I want to grow, I want to learn, I understand this project that I'm on. I don't need a team lead to be nipping at my heels asking me what I'm doing today. I'm going to show up to my stand-up. If I get stuck, I'm going to raise my hand. We're looking for people that are sort of self-driven like that. And then, of course, like everybody, we're really looking for innovators to come in. So that's our sort of look ahead, innovate now behaviors that we really press, which is, I get it, the car, the software, everything we do is the way it is now. Everything is changing so fast that we really need people who enjoy the fact that, like Grace said, I came in, I didn't know it, I was happy to learn it, happy to grow, that's definitely the kind of person that we're looking for. So when we interview you, it's like, I'm not going to ask you some tricky tech question. I'm going to say, tell me about a time you had to get started on a project and didn't know what to do. And now I'm listening for stories about, like, well, it was on me, so I took this kind of initiative. I did these things to get through that sticking point. These are the resources that I drew upon. You know, this is how I sort of innovated my way out of this box. So that's actually the kind of thing that we look for. It's more about the behaviors and the person than it is, I already know what you know. I've met the same version of you 8 years in a row, coming out of Washington State with a degree in computer science, and I love me some Cougars. So yeah. That's what I would say. And I'm a Sun Devil saying that, which is a lot. So
awesome. Sounds good. I think, like, yeah, you explained like the interview process really well. And I think as a candidate or like a student, I think they would appreciate that more, because you're talking about yourself and like explain more of your skill set, where it's just trying to solve like a coding question or something like that. That doesn't really mean anything. So that's really good. So Deanna, I know you talk to candidates very often. So can you talk a little bit about what skills like really stand out to you when you're hiring for software engineering and other technical roles?
Yeah, so I'm going to hit on the skills first, and then kind of just give, again, my expertise in regards to, in regards to interviewing. Just some skills and just things that help, and I'll probably touch on this a little bit later as well. But just some really cool things, and they were both, Grace and Dan were both hinting at it, but if you have any programming languages, technology, softwares, you know, we're looking at resumes. We'll get resumes that come in. If you put any projects, applications, certification, something like that, those pop out. And this is my line. I say this all the time. You know, it may not seem big to you. It may just be something small, but the little thing and the little effort that you're putting on resume, somebody else isn't doing it. So again, may not seem like a big deal, but to me, those are things that pop out. And then just interviewing, and Dan led like right into what I was saying about the behavior. We use behavior-based interview style questions here. I don't know if I'm throwing away all of our goods that we do here, but that is a style that I don't know.
Insider info.
Yes,
insider.
I don't know if I was allowed to say that, but that's the style of what we do here. Seems very similar to what everybody else does. But what I like to say is that I think these are really good questions because it's a style that's hopefully going to enable us to see your behavior and kind of see what you do. We ask you, it's the STAR method. Don't know if anybody knows what that is, but it's just an acronym where we look for a situation or a task, a specific example. You kind of walk us through the actions that you did, what skill sets you did. Like Daniel said, Dan, do you like Dan or Daniel?
I go by Dan, but either's
Dan.
fine.
I'm Daniel, like your mother. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Dan, just like Dan said, we want
That
to
would
see your
be that would be
innovation.
Daniel Gregory if it was my
Oh,
mother.
DG.
She throws in the middle. Yes, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
But we want to see your innovation, the skill set that you mentioned. We want to see that you walk us through how you solve something, navigate us through how you handled it and how it turned out. So that's my biggest thing. I'm just throwing this at you guys right now, but if you'd like to look it up, I like to recommend everybody look that up for interviews. When I was a kid, all my parents like, you gotta practice your piano, Deanna. You gotta practice for interviews. I don't play piano anymore, so that should tell you how much I practice. But if you practice for interviews, that should help you. I like to say for each project or job, come up with maybe 2 to 3 examples for each one, and then say, okay, this is the situation. This is how I worked it. Practice those. Once you get those down, it's easy. Once you get them in your mind, then you're not going to be nervous. You already have it together, and then you can kind of tweak it and say, oh, this is how it would work towards this question, or this is how my situation would work towards this one. So those are my tips. Hopefully those are helpful. I think those are just some really good things to be aware of when you are interviewing.
Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, definitely. So really quickly, before we move on to the next segment, if each one of you guys can just really quickly share one interviewing tip or how to prepare for interviews and stuff like that for our audience, really quickly, like 10 seconds or less. Go for it. Deanna, you go first.
Everything I just mentioned. Practice, Google behavior-based interview questions.
Cool.
Yep. I'm the exact same. Literally practice and rehearse, use the STAR method, and then have your stories, like literally this is quick, make a list of the stories that you're going to use. This is not a list of stories, but then when they ask a question, you go, okay, which one of these stories fits that? This one does. And then to Deanna's point, you can sort of tweak it to perfectly answer the question, but know your projects, have a few stories, internships you did, whatever. The one thing and last thing I would just say is stay on topic. You're trying to get a job as a software developer. That's sort of a pet peeve of mine. I'm like, tell me about a time, blah, blah, blah. And they tell me about like setting up a ski trip for their fraternity. And I'm like, that doesn't help me. Like, I didn't get much out of that. So stay on topic is very important. Grace.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Have a notes ready with bullet points and everything that you really want to touch on in your interview.
Awesome. And I would like to add, just make sure to research on the company too. I know that's not anything technical or anything like that, but a lot of like interviewers, they do ask like, what made you interested in this company or stuff like that, right? And then I know like as graduates and stuff like that, we just want a job and stuff, but I mean, it's also good to like research on the company, know their morals, what their mission statement is and stuff like that. So that's very important too. It only takes like 5-10 minutes. You can do it like a day before your interview, but I highly recommend to do that too. Just research on the company you're applying to and just know like what they're about. So final segment. So really quickly, I wanted to ask you guys, like one of my favorite things about being a software engineer is the ability to work on teams. So I kind of want to know, like on a day-to-day basis for you guys, like what does the collaboration look like? Like, do you guys like work with project managers, designers, for example? So Grace, if you want to get started on this question, kind of break it down on what it looks like at Ever for you.
Yeah, so my team that attends my stand-up is about 10 people big, but we work with like 2-3 other teams. Dan described it as a soup, and that's very accurate. We all kind of lean on each other and use our different expertise in that way. And I get to work really closely with designers as well as my product owners. yeah, and a lot of paired programming, which is great, and just other like, hey, I'm stuck on this and I've seen you've done it before. Can we have a quick chat? A lot of that going on within my team.
Sounds good. And Dan, so yeah, well, what does it look like for you? I know you like, it looks like you have like a lot of opportunity to mentor like a lot of recent grads. So what kind of advice can you share?
Yeah, so I do. So first I would just double up on what Grace said. Again, we did planning today. There were 30 people on that call from all over the place, all the way from like senior architects all the way down to, yeah, just literally graduated 60 days ago on the same call, working towards the same goal. So it's pretty cool working in IT. The people you work with are just, everybody's brilliant. So you look forward to that. As far as things that I would recommend, I would say, move around, right? So I sort of picked on Grace earlier and said she might get tired of React and want to learn the back end. That's what you really should do. In your first 5 years, it's all about just like put tools in your tool belt. So as soon as you sort of feel like you master something, just go to your boss and say, hey, so what else do you have for me? And usually even within the single team, they'll say, oh, here's a back end story, here's a front end story, here's some API integration work we need to get done. Hey, nobody knows how to do live webcasting. You want to go do a spike and research how we might bring that into this tool. Just constantly be growing yourself. Don't just get one skill. And then I would just say, as you're interviewing with companies, that like at GM, if you go into our engineering software side, we have a 2-year program. You change departments every 6 months for 2 years. We call it the track program. So you might start out in like autonomous vehicles, and then next thing you know, you're on like over-the-air update infotainment stuff, and then next thing you know, you're doing like vehicle calibration stuff. So you can just sort of move around and learn different software stacks by going into different teams. Or if you're in a more traditional IT role, just talk to your boss. I mean, so often we just swap. Like there's a manager over here named Jeff. I'm going to talk to him later and be like, I got a guy, he's doing Power BI development, wants to check something else out. What do you got? And I might do it, you send me one of yours, I'll send you one of mine. And we can just easily rotate people around so they get those experiences. I think that's really important. Don't just do the same thing for 5 years. After a year or two, as soon as you're sort of like, I got this, move.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds good. So let's get started with Q&A. So we have some questions coming in from the audience. So I'm just kind of go through like some of the popular ones. So the first question is actually for Grace. So the question is asking, so how different was it for you to write code for work versus writing code at university?
Yeah, this is a really great question. And experience I had at Purdue is based on the professor. They had different like coding standards almost. And so coming in, that had prepared me a little bit to know that, the way that I've traditionally code with putting my comments here or doing this or whatever is not going to be standard to how Discover does it. And again, that's something that we learn as you're joining the team, and they have lots of grace. Like they're not, you did this wrong. They're like, hey, like this is actually how we do it here. And so it's very different in a way that there's like the coding standards, but also in the way that I came in, there's whole built up applications where in school you're starting from scratch and you're making, whatever project you're working on. So you're really trying to narrow down, what is this block of code doing? What is this doing? How does this application work all together? And a lot more of that debugging almost, and like critical thinking of how this code works rather than building it from scratch.
Sounds good. Yeah. No, I agree, because like I feel like with every company, they do have like a coding type of style you kind of have to get acclimated to, and it is different from like how we do it at university and stuff.
Yeah.
But like with the training process and everything like that, I feel like you guys can get onboarded and stuff and kind of get up to speed with all that. So second question we have is actually for Deanna. So the question is asking, so they're senior majoring in neuroscience and they want to break into tech, but they don't have any tech experience for an internship right now. So what steps should I take to land a tech internship? They're asking.
Ooh, so I say this is something I feel like my mother, but this is something I always say as well. It's understandable. You're not supposed to have 40 years of experience under your belt. So we definitely understand that. What I like to say, and I kind of hinted at it earlier, if you can, just highlight some of the things that you've worked on. So if you, I was looking at resumes earlier today, they mentioned some courses that reflect in regards to languages that I know a team is going to need. If there's a project or an application or something or a certification, I've seen like different boot camps and different things that people have used. And, if you put a little blurb or highlight what you did, sometimes that's going to, more times than none, it reflects in regards to what I'm looking for. So I recommend again, whatever little experience you have, you can just tweak it and maintain it and demonstrate that information. Because again, not everybody, I don't want people to feel like you can't apply if you don't have a ton of experience, if you don't have an internship under your belt. There's opportunities. And a little personal tidbit about myself. I'm a marketing major. I didn't have any HR experience. And so if you're able, what I like to recommend, I took on a side job. And I said, this side job was a little random, but it had some aspects that I thought I could utilize in HR. And so if you have the opportunity, then maybe take on something else, and you can still continue to grow and develop, and then update that on your resume as well if you can. So that's also an additional option. That was me bragging on myself a little bit, but you could definitely do that as well, and then highlight that on your resume. So that would probably be my tip for that.
Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, great tip. And for the person that was asking the question, like if you are interested in learning like programming languages and stuff like that, a great resource I would recommend is Free Code Camp. They have a website and a YouTube channel. It's completely free. It's an awesome resource, and they have full-length tutorials and courses and stuff for you to check. You can start with whatever you're interested in and kind of go from there. So just a great resource for you to check out. And then Dan, so we have a question for you. So the question is asking, so for coding problems in a virtual interview, does a recruiter look for the effort or perfection with comments in code?
That's a great question. I would say sometimes they will. It kind of depends on the role that you're applying for and what the scenario is. What I would tell you is we're hiring 650 into my group and another like 500 into the engineering. Those recruiters are probably not going to look at every single coded solution and check to see if you were putting comments. But what eventually happens is you get past Deanna, right? And then you're like sort of interviewing with actual hiring managers. They might go back to your code view and check and look at your code hygiene. So it's not a bad idea. We do a thing called code view. It's just like a single problem. You get an hour to do it. If you can comment it out, good code hygiene is always a good idea. You can run, it's got built-in unit tests that you can run to see if it's going to work. So test your code. Don't just hit submit at the end. Good code hygiene and running the unit tests is a good idea if you can do it in the 60 minutes. If you're sort of like struggling, then just do the best you can. And what I would tell you is if you do bomb that, that's not a deal breaker. It is something that some managers are like, well, they're good, but I don't want them on my team. And then some managers will be like, oh, they'll be perfect on my team. We're going to train them on something different anyway. So that's how I'd answer that. If you can do it, do it. But at volume, there's a good chance they won't look at your code. They'll literally just see how it's scored.
Right. No, that's a great way to put it for sure. And now for Deanna, so we have another question for you. So they're asking, so they wanted to ask you like if you have any insight how like their grades in university will affect their job placement. So they're saying last year they obtained a 2.9 GPA, but this semester they're on the way to a 4.0, which is awesome. So they're asking for you to any thoughts like how that would affect them.
Well, 4.0 better than me, so I think that's
yeah, awesome. Congratulations.
That's pretty awesome. So my first thing is keep it up. Don't slack off. That you're doing great. But in regards to GPA, I don't want to say that it's a huge hindrance. I will say it is encouraging. It's more encouraging to see obviously a higher GPA because we all have lives. School is hard. You gotta go to class. I had 2 jobs when I was in college, so you have to do that. You may be in an organization. And so a good GPA mixed with all of those things is demonstrating the things that you're probably going to have to utilize in the adult world, because let me tell you, when you get a job as an adult out of college, you're going to have these different things that you have to do, and there's different projects, and there's drive-by, somebody will run right by you, and then there's something you may have to work on. So it kind of correlates to, if you have a high GPA and you're able to work and focus while you're doing that, you're going to hopefully be able to utilize the same skill sets in job. I'm rambling a little bit, but I think it is good to have a good GPA. I don't want to encourage everybody to go fail. Don't go fail your classes. I would focus on maintaining a good GPA. I think that it does reflect pretty well in regards to a job, but I don't want to hound too much on that. I want to make sure that you guys are understanding, what you're needing, building yourself, getting everything you need, and the 4.0, I'm still not over that. I didn't get a 4.0. So
I think
keep
what you
it
kind
up.
of say is have a balance, right? So like
Yes,
focus
yes,
on your
yes.
grades and then do like the other things too. Just
Absolutely.
overall great candidate. And then final question, this is for Grace. So what experience and services in school do you guys wish you took better you took better advantage of before graduating?
Oh, that's a really, really, really good question. I think that we had like a career institute or whatever, and they did resume reviews, and I really didn't know about it until my senior year of college. And I'm sure most campuses have this. I would definitely take advantage of that career advice. They look over resumes, they help you prep for interviews like this. I wish that I would have used that. And as well, I think I'm very thankful that I was really involved in a lot of different clubs on campus because that gave me that kind of what Deanna was talking about, that well-rounded experience of having the projects outside, having experience outside that I was able to talk on during those interviews.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, so definitely like I would say like take advantage of like your student organizations and stuff like that, all the career networking events they have, definitely take advantage of that. That'll really help you guys out a lot. So that was like the last of our questions. So like to wrap up, so I guess we'll all share like one piece of advice to the audience. So Deanna, why don't you go first? Just one piece of advice you think would be the best for everyone.
Oh man. My piece of advice, well, one, I would like to say that everybody that is attending this, you're already on the right path. You are doing the right things because there's people out there who aren't taking the effort. So that's my one thing. I guess I have two things. And then my second thing is just be patient. I remember when I was getting out of school, I was all over the place and like I was a good student. I'm a smart kid, but I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I wanted. And it's okay. You'll be fine. Just be patient. It takes time. Even the interview process can take time. It could take a few weeks. Everything uh, takes time. So if you're like me, I'm not the most patient person. I recommend just being patient, and you guys are all on the right track.
Awesome, great. And Dan, what about you?
Yeah, I would just say be proactive about your job search. So, Grace brought up a great point, which is a lot of universities have a career center. You should go there because they typically have relationships with people like General Motors, Discover, Charles Schwab, and they will know what jobs and skill sets that those companies are looking for. I work very closely with Fulton over at Arizona State. We work with the Career Center down at U of A. I work with Northern Arizona. Um, they know my name. I know their name. They know what we're looking for. I know what they have. So if you're not leveraging the Career Center, you're missing a huge opportunity to just like make this easier for yourself. But be proactive. When you're like, if you're a senior, you definitely, it's time. I mean, we're hiring right now for people that won't start till next August. So it's time. If you're a junior looking for an internship, it's probably too late. Like most companies we've already filled our internships for next summer. So you got to get moving, be proactive, go to your career center, see who's recruiting from there. And then last but not least, I would say use tools like Handshake. Because just in case, I mean, like I said, we go to like 50 core universities, but we recruit I have a guy on my team, he's awesome, from UC California, Merced. And I'm literally like, how did you find us? Like, we don't go there. He's like, oh yeah, I found you on Handshake. I was like, oh, perfect. So use the other tools as well. But certainly the Career Center, literally, you can just stumble in there, after eating a burrito at lunch and get a job. So use that first, and then also use other tools and get going.
Great, thanks. And then yeah, Grace, finally, what tip can you share?
Yeah, I think just stay curious. Always like looking for new learning opportunities has been something that's really like progressed my career and has, I think, served me pretty well. So stay curious and be open to learning.
Awesome. And then as for me, so like I want to share something one of my professors actually told me. So what he said was, it's not the grades you make, but the hands you shake. And what he meant by that is like, yeah, focus on school, but like also focus a lot on like networking and attending events and stuff like that, like career fairs, hackathons and stuff like that. Because the more people you have in your network and everything like that, the more opportunities will come to you. So you don't always have to just apply through a website. You can just reach out to people and they can help you get like the job you want and stuff like that. So always make sure to attend those career fairs, career mixers. LinkedIn's also a great place to network and meet people. So that would be my advice to all of you guys. So I would like to thank everybody for joining, and also thanks to Deanna, Grace, and Dan for sharing all your advice and your time as well.